Hello, 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 everyone. Today is your friendly neighborhood quick Christian, and today is the Friday word. As you can tell from my tone, there is a little more somberness because I believe, and many others, that we have entered a bit more of a somber time. On November 5th, this country elected Barabbas. Amen. And in no way I'm comparing the vice president to Jesus Christ, but I'm sure you can discern what I mean because it's not hyperbole, right? Amen. There's a choice between a candidate who has been a respected politician, who has a Juris Doctorate, who has been a prosecutor, to a person who has 91 indictments and 34 convictions. So literally in real time, this country elected Barabbas. So with that understanding and the swallowing, I'm sure Barabbas, I always get it back and forth. So I'm sure some purists going to be like, you said it wrong, whatever. Barabbas, that's what I said. So with that understanding, we know that we have entered and continue to enter a different time, right? One thing is that history is cyclical, right? History continues to move. There's certain changes that have always happened. And so this time is not an unknown time. We've had times that are similar. One could argue after Reconstruction. This was a very similar time. The difference of this time, though, is the breadth of what is affected is so much bigger now. Because during that period of time after the Reconstruction, it affected our country, it affected some other countries. But now we're talking about things that affect protected lands. We're talking about climate change. We're talking about the Department of Education. We're talking about the EPA. We're talking about arts funding. We're talking about government support. We're talking about the ACA. So the expanse is so much larger. And so at this time, I would argue, is a time for us to really fall into our faith. Into our faith, not just for our own selves, but into our faith because of what this country has just done will now have a global effect. It will affect many other countries, and not just in terms of immigration, but we're talking in terms of climate change. And because the countries that are really affected by what first world nations do are smaller nations that don't have as much power. And so that's where you see the increased tsunamis, that's where you see mudslides. All these things are affected by the behaviors of countries that run huge companies that have very little respect for how what they do affects others. And if anyone remember things like Exxon and Chevron, and without the guardrails to hold them, there isn't much buffer. And right now we've just put in place a man who has no sense of guardrails, who I would argue has no moral compass. And so with that understanding, we are entering time where the voices of those who do are even so much more powerful and so much more needed. Amen. I want to go to Luke 23. And in Luke 23, right after we're going to look here at 44, when Jesus has just been has just been crucified. By now it was noon. The whole earth became dark, the darkness lasting 3 hours, a total blackout. I'm going to jump. Then he breathed his last. When the captain there saw what happened and honored God, this man was innocent, a good man and innocent. And all who come around as spectators to watch the show, when they saw what actually happened, were overcome with grief and headed home. They came to watch the show. These last couple of months have been a complete and utter spectacle. Madison Square Garden was a show. Not a show that I would want to attend, but a show. All sort of things were thrown around. There was no sense of decorum. Anyone was free game. to be used for ridicule. It was a show. But now that the show has ended, amen, one thing that is noted, that on the night of November 6th in New York, there was a quiet that fell over. There was a quiet. In the early mornings, there was a quiet over this city. And since that time, it's been noted that there has been bickering in the midst of his party. They should be joyful. They have all three houses, but there isn't. There's bickering. Because when what you're doing is based in the crushing of others, it can't elicit joy. In Proverbs 17, it says, joy is good spirit, is good medicine for the spirit, but a crushed up spirit will dry up the bones. When what you're doing is not built in spirit, when it's not built in the greatest commandment, love others as you love yourself, there is nothing that can come from it that will create joy. You can have power, you can have greed, but joy, the peace of what you're looking for, to be seen as someone who is admired and respected, not feared, but admired and respected, cannot come from a place built on beating others down. Amen. Here we have Proverbs 29:2. When the righteous thrive, the people rejoice. When the wicked rule, the people groan. What will happen forward from now? I don't know. It is an interesting time as we enter. But the one thing I believe that we can know and we can depend on is that, again, you will understand a tree by its fruit. So we shall see in the next couple of years what this tree will yield. I argue it will not yield joy. It will not yield peace. It will not yield understanding. But hopefully in this time, as we're moving in these next couple of years, that we as a country will begin to understand that what we have and even things we have or we don't have, don't come from just arguing, don't come from just being upset that my eggs cost too much, but an understanding of that we are part of a world, and what we do and how we move, how we vote, doesn't just affect us. And that whether something is hard for us to accept, if we have to make a negotiation, that is part of life. That is throughout the Bible. Jonah did it, Job did it, Jesus did it, Noah did it. And if we understand that, if we can really take that to heart, we can understand what Angela Davis said. A vote is a chess move, not a Valentine. I hope that lands for someone. Okay, so there won't be prayer chat tomorrow, but I hope you have a beautiful week. And till next time.